But why don't you get into it, Gabe? Tell me your stuff.
Let me do it. So, as I mentioned, we were talking about Pearl, which is from 2022, just happened. Very excited for it. And it is about in 1918, a young woman on the brink of madness pursues stardom in a desperate attempt to escape the drudgery, isolation, and lovelessness of life on her parents' farm. It's directed by Ty West. It was written by him and Mia Goth, who plays Pearl in both films, as well as Maxine in X and Max Triple Xine. I'm gonna call that there. And wow, Mia Goth, all the awards deserved 10 times over for this role, and I'm very excited to see her in the new Cronenberg film. So,
Oh, true. Yeah.
Ty West's Pearl serves as a prequel to his X film's memorable villain, the older, sexually starved Pearl, who wreaks havoc on the young bodies that had the audacity to engage in relations on her property.
Yep.
The prequel provides us with a glimpse into Pearl's complicated past and a slight defense for her actions. It's an explanation of her actions.
Yeah.
Background to her actions, but she did what she did.
Yeah.
She's not a hero, okay?
Yeah.
The film obviously follows Pearl in her youth now, as she fights against the life the world has forced upon her, one of idle hands and quiet mouths, and she lives on a farm with her mother and father, the latter of which has become quite ill after an encounter with the 1918's own pandemic. So he got sick, and now he needs to be cared for, which is really stressful. I was like, this is already, I'd say I was never afraid in this film, but there were parts where I was afraid for him.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
that
yeah.
was like
100%.
everybody else makes sense. But I
Yeah.
don't know this man before. Like, I don't know like he is in your care. Like, and she very surprisingly, like in her twisted way, was still taking care of him. Like
Yeah.
she
Just,
never tried to hurt him in a way that like she was just trying to figure things out. Like I
yeah.
didn't feel like she was like, I hate you. I want you to die.
Yeah. It was,
About her mom.
yeah. She wasn't like mad at him because it like wasn't his fault, first of all, but like, her murderous intent was definitely not personal for him.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, for him, for sure. And even like later, some of the times it was just like, oh,
yeah.
oops. Yeah, so because of this, the care of her father, the maintenance of their home, and their well-beings falls on the two women, her and her mother. And despite this heavy existence of farm chores and care work, Pearl's world is lit in Technicolor, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Because Pearl is going to be a star.
Yep.
And I appreciate Ty West's dedication to the genre and the cinematic influences of the film's time period. So with X, he stuck to a Texas Chainsaw Massacre aesthetic against the backdrop of the sex industry of the 70s. And it was this antithesis to the horror genre's obsession with murdering sexually charged youths.
Yep.
Because that's like what Texas Chainsaw Massacre is. It's like, how dare these hot young people come onto my property and, just be hot, because that's what they
Yeah.
were.
How dare.
And with Pearl, the saturated colors carefully cover the grimy truth of Pearl's life and actions, and it inspires a twisted version of The Wizard of Oz. Only this time, Dorothy doesn't accidentally drop a house or a bucket of water on the villain. Instead, she stabs him with a pitchfork to the chest or takes an axe to their head.
Yep. Classic.
It happens, you know?
Yeah. I remember that being in The Wizard of Oz. That's my Wizard of Oz from my childhood. I'm kidding, it's not, but
It's not. But I mean, the book, very horrific.
oh, fair. I
Very
did not read the
scary.
book, so I don't even know.
So it's like because I mean, well, yeah, there's sexual stuff in that too. So yeah,
Huh.
it's
Oh,
like if
yeah.
they were true to the novel, I guess.
Yeah.
It's more R-rated, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I thought was really fun, because it's very like he's trying very hard to be Technicolor. Like the colors are saturated. Her being the star is just very reminiscent of Judy Garland. It's just very amazing.
Yeah.
So when we first meet her, she is found spinning in her room, holding a beautiful red dress to her body and fantasizing about the stage. And after being ordered to put that away and tend to her chores, Pearl, now dressed in overalls and boots, continues her performance. But this time to an audience of farm animals, because that's all she can get.
Yep.
Not allowed to go anywhere.
Nope.
So we get a taste of Pearl's sinister nature immediately when she murders one of the family's ducks for intruding on her performance. So
Yeah.
immediately.
And you know how I feel about duck murder, so I was sad.
Yeah, yeah. You're like canceled. She's done.
Yeah, I was like, I hate her. But I was
We
like,
just met her.
I'm definitely being dramatic. Just gonna keep watching.
But
Yeah.
so is she. Like it's you see that and well, first of all, it's always like you kill animals, it's like a serial killer, warning, red flag.
Yeah.
But it's like we meet her and she's like, I'm gonna be a star, and she's dancing and she's mirroring she's in the location and she's mirroring like an outfit and kind of just like she has a little thing is reminiscent of Maxine in X.
Yeah.
So literally the same, you know?
It's the same actress, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, but I mean, like, she's dressed the
But like,
same, she's doing
yeah.
the Ghouls, whisper, whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
It is
Uh,
cool.
and later, Pearl gets an opportunity to head to the big city to pick up her father's medication, which is like, yes, oh my gosh, finally. And her mother warns her against the pandemic, telling her to wear a mask. And they're like these little cloth things. And at some point, I was like, okay, I get it. You're writing this during the pandemic, and there used to be a pandemic. Like it just happened a lot.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, there's a pandemic. Hey, is that funny? I just think being in the midst of this pandemic for so many years that when I see the pandemic, like when people try to heavy hand it, I'm like, I'm over this. Okay. I'm living this still.
Well, because we're still in the trauma of it. So it's not,
Yeah.
we haven't reached the trauma to comedy window yet.
Yeah.
We're still in
Yeah.
there.
So it's like even in the U season 3, they like make a mention of the pandemic and they're like, yo, the anti-vaxxers or whatever. And all this other stuff. And I'm just like, I get it. The only one who's done that in a good way was Superstore. Just as a side note.
Oh yeah, I remember Superstore.
They did a good job on everything. So, but while in town, we see the world Pearl desperately wants to be a part of because she's like a Disney princess. Wants to be a part of their world. And she steals away into a theater, watching the dancers and dreaming of a day when she'll be that star. She has a fateful interaction with the theater's projectionist who flirts with her, offering her a glimpse behind the scenes, saying that she can come back anytime. And she asserts that she's married, that she's a good girl. Because like, nope, can't. And he's like, okay. Just talking to a pretty girl, don't know what to tell you. And then she heads home. And we get to see more of that tainted repression that Pearl suffers from when she has an intimate and loud moment with a scarecrow.
Yep.
It's a weird scene. It's a very long scene. It's a long, weird scene. And they want you to know something's wrong with Pearl.
Yeah.
They want you to know something's here. Something's happening. And I totally get it because having a husband away at war, taking care of your family, isolating due to a pandemic, and living in the early 1900s. Yeah. No wonder Pearl is taught with tension and troublesome thoughts.
Yeah.
It's rough out there, okay?
Yeah.
And as the story progresses, we see just how isolated Pearl is because of her mother. And after she gives in to those desires, coupling with the hot projectionist, she learns of a possibility, the chance at an escape. Because he is a self-proclaimed bohemian living a life for himself, only a luxury that only a white man in 1918 could have. And he indulges her with kisses and the first pornographic film. And also he's just like, oh, that could be you. And it doesn't seem like it's the way that it's like said in the conversation they're having doesn't feel like pervy the way that like you would expect that to be, where he's not like, oh, that could be you. It's more like that could be you. Like you could be sexually free.
Yeah.
Like you could have that opportunity. And she's like, what? No, stop.
Me?
It just felt different.
Yeah.
Like I was expecting him to say something like that, but I was not expecting it to be like kind of in this like positive light. And I was like, that's dope. I like him.
Yeah.
So after this interaction, Pearl's yearning for an escape and for freedom grows even stronger. Only now, Pearl's intruding thoughts start to leak out and take shape in the real world. And she fears something is wrong with her. And in response to the fear of being found out, she lashes out first. And that happens time and time again, where she's just like, it's that paranoia of like, I know something's wrong and I'm being am I doing it?
Yeah.
Am I being loud? Am I saying the stuff? And then they're like, no, 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 everything's fine. And she's like, okay, you're lying. Okay,
Yeah.
you're lying because I am crazy and you're not telling me I'm crazy. Just say it. Just say it.
Yeah.
You know
But
what I
don't
mean?
say it, because if you do, I
But
will
then I'll
stab
also still
you.
murder you. There's no
Yeah.
way out of this.
Yeah.
But it's just like them trying to play like she's stupid. And she's
Yeah.
like, I'm not. I know I'm crazy. So what's wrong? Okay, well, tell me what's wrong because you said it's
Yeah.
fine. I loved her because it's like this blend of like innocence, but also like evil.
Yeah.
Like where it's just she seems like she could be someone you can pull the wool over because she just this little farm girl, and then she's not. She's thinking. She's more than just this like I'm fantasizing about becoming a dancer. It's just that's her only way out.
Yeah.
you know um so we watch as Pearl seeks that freedom wherever she can get it, whether it be dancing alone in her room, humping a scarecrow in the cornfield, or cavorting with the handsome projectionists, right? And her desperate spiral is intense, leaving a path of blood and pain in her wake. And at the heart of the film, though, what truly elevates it is Mia Goth's performance. Totally worth it just for her.
Yeah.
As weird as it gets, she's just such a powerful person to watch. Like her presence is just
Yeah.
like
She's a
shaking, like you're like,
fantastic
oh,
actress.
whew, man. And as Pearl performs in front of a panel of judges in hopes of becoming a professional dancer, so convinced that she's going to win that she prematurely burns bridges and her mother, anticipating her escape. And she is the very spirit of Judy Garland on this stage. And she does this whole dance. I was really worried. I was like, we haven't seen her actually dance. We only really heard her kind of like move around and like talk about how she dances.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, is she gonna be like really bad? She gonna be like that Family Guy episode where Lois and Peter
Yeah,
took the drugs and they're just screaming on the guitar, but they thought they were singing this beautiful song. It's like, is that what it's gonna be? But she was like fine, like it totally middle of the road. She does some twirls. She's very much feeling it, but she, like, as unfair as the world has been, still believed that these people would value like her passion and talent over an aesthetic.
Yeah.
But of course not, because this is how like society and Hollywood, even though it wasn't Hollywood, see people. So they wanted the all-American girl, the blonde. And
White
she's
supremacy.
just not that. Woo! Yeah, she's just not that. They wanted Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
And so in this, so she's really feeling Judy Garland vibes in here. Only she doesn't get the role, obviously. And the news is so at odds with Pearl's interpretation of the world and her skill personally that she lets those quiet parts out loud. And she's a star. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the smoke of the volcano that is a warning before her final explosion. And it is really intense. This is where she's yelling that she's a star and she just spirals out and then she's just like sobbing hideously.
It's grief crying, like as if someone had just died in front of her. She's howling, like sobbing.
Because her dreams have died in front of her. Like she literally was so like, that's what I think it is. Like she really was like 100%. Like her friend was like, what are you like? Oh, I hope we get it. I hope I get it. And she was just like, oh, I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
Like, I have to because
there's no other option.
The world owes me. And then for them to say no, it was just like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It's like also like an escape from isolation. Like it's her only way to get out of where she is. So the desperation is like palpable.
Yeah. Because it's like, what is the alternative? Like either she gets this and she can get out and actually have a chance, or she's here and what?
Yeah.
She goes back to that house? Well, yeah, she does.
Yeah,
so
sadly.
Later, in a truly harrowing, heartbreaking, and awe-inspiring scene, Pearl sits in front of her sister-in-law, the sweet Mitzi, and Mitzi explains that of course she could tell her anything. She's a safe source. They're family. Talk to me like I'm your husband, Howard, who's my brother, and I sure he will love you no matter what you have to say. And boy, was she wrong. Only because she doesn't know who Pearl really is. And when Pearl finally gets an opportunity to pour out all those inner fears, it doesn't stop. And Mia Goth gives us this one long shot of rambling fears and frustrations. And she's just letting it all out,
Yeah.
like unfiltered. And she's like
Honesty.
trying so hard to like uh get empathy and understanding while also being like, no, I get it. Like, I'm not in the right, but life has been very mean to me. So Pearl unloads on the unfairness of her life, a complaint of the life she deserved, but Mitzi got instead. Right? Just why? Why do you get
Yeah.
that? And she confesses and reasons and worries, and her spiral is controlled and affirmative. And the world has been unfair to Pearl, and she's been dealt a bad hand after bad hand, but she's no victim. Okay? Because something is wrong with Pearl. And she knows it, yet she demands to be loved in spite of it. And she's too far gone. What we're left with is Pearl making the most of a bad situation, ready to play house for her returning husband the way she's been playing good girl her whole life.
Yeah.
It's just like her finally, she airs it all out, you know. Poor
Yeah.
Mitzi. Mitzi could have played it a little better. And it's just like, well, yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
can't
I
change it
mean,
now.
what's wild is like if someone just convinced or like confessed that they murdered people, you gotta up your poker face. You gotta like really, you gotta say all the right things. Like you gotta pretend you're, oh my God, that's so real. I
It's
totally, you gotta get out of there. You need to say whatever you
uh-huh.
need to say to get out of there. And she totally is just like, okay,
I'm
I'm
gonna be
gonna
honest
go
though.
though.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think Mitzi could have said anything. Pearl
That's
was never
fair.
gonna let her out. The same one with the
Fair.
projectionist. Like when she's like, she says all that, and Mitzi's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go," and she just turns around and says, "Congratulations on getting that
Yeah.
role, because I know you got it." And she's just like, "I didn't get the role," and she played it pretty well, like to the point where I was
Yeah.
convinced, like maybe she didn't, and she's lying that
Yeah.
saying she did because she's like demanding her to say it. But then she's like, "Oh my God, this is the chance of a lifetime." I was like, "You idiot. You're crazy," because she's like,
Yeah. You are
mm-hmm,
so close.
mm-hmm. Like that turn is like the most evil that Pearl has ever been. Because all the other people, it was like she just kind of like has these accidental moments in a way. Like even when she stabs the projectionist, I feel like there was like it's not like a oopsie, but she's just like so like passion
Well, yeah, it's
crazy
like a
about
fear of rejection. Yeah.
it.
Like that
Yeah,
was
like
her other way out and it's gone now.
yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
you're not
100%.
telling, like, it's not, you're not matching up with what you're saying. And that's
Yeah.
frustrating. And I'm already paranoid about how people think about me. And
Yeah.
you're not helping that. Right. With
Yeah.
Mitzi, it was like, she was like, you embody all the things I can't have. And so, like, I have Mitzi, I gotta kill you. And that whole thing where she like lets her run and scream, and she's just like, all right, let me just take this axe and just walks up to her. I was like, that
Yeah.
is the coolest thing.
Yeah. You're
And so
like,
I was
you
like,
know, we're in the middle of nowhere. No one is hearing you,
it's just
babe.
like, I've been screaming every day of my life,
Yeah.
okay? Ain't nobody heard me. They're not
Yeah.
gonna hear you, Mitzi. And I loved it. I love that so much. And like that scene was just and it's also uh a similar scene that happens in X,
Yeah.
where she axes him down. So I think Pearl's an amazing villain. Like
Yeah.
for in the horror franchise, an amazing villain. Just the way I think Max is actually like a pretty decent final girl. I think she's actually
Yeah.
pretty cool because she's weird. Like she's got something evil going on with her too, which is really fun. That's why I'm excited to see what happens to her.
Yeah.
But in the end, Pearl is a story of repression in an unfair, sexist world. And Pearl's life was one of hushed desire, caring for her father, enduring her mother's constant criticism, the demands to act appropriately as a married woman should. And it's enough to make anyone snap. And this prequel gives us a much needed context for older Pearl's murderous actions, because Pearl is seeing these young folks enjoying their bodies, being bold and free in a way that she never could be. They taunt her with their youth and opportunity, and they even defend themselves, explaining that their bodies are theirs to do with whatever they want. But that was never the case for Pearl. Only having
Yeah.
glimpsed a small breath of that sexual freedom in the French pornographic films that he had showed her. And here they are, just living her life in dreams. And I think that's what's even more important in this film is that even though it does give us some context for Pearl's actions. It does not excuse Pearl's behavior.
Yeah.
And because I think it's important to know that the events in the film didn't inspire her to be the killer in X, but was instead a coming of age tale with this killer twist, right?
Yeah.
Releasing something sinister that was in her all the time. Like she admits to always kind of having something in her that led her
Yeah.
to do these things. It's just like no one's there to hold her accountable now.
Yeah. And I
Because
mean, yeah. And she's never held accountable. Like her husband stays with her the entire time. And it's just like, my sweet, crazy wife. At least she's hot. Do, do, do,
yeah,
do.
yeah. And then like, until the very end, she's doing
Yep.
it. And and that's all to say because just as Pearl fears, something is wrong with her.
Yeah.
She knows it, everyone knows it. It's how it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, unfortunately. It's like an entire sad time. And for visual, I did put my glasses on because I need to read.
Totally
But
allowed.
it's a whole time. And I, as you said, it does not excuse it, but I also understand considering the time that she grew up in. I actually like I remember when we first watched it, you're like, this is like a nature versus nurture. And I was like, no, this is nurture. After I read all this stuff, I'm like, it is nurture. Like, this is a product of the way she was raised. Like, she chose to murder, just like Joe chose to murder. But it makes
Mhm.
sense how like her cognitive brain formation like took place and like how she never really established strong social bonds because of like the level of isolation that she experienced the entirety of her life.
Mhm.
She really never really had a chance.
Well, I mean, we get hints that like she had to have had something before that, like her interaction with her like husband and stuff, like how she met him and stuff. So she had a little bit, and she had hopes. She just kept having hopes that she was going to
Yeah.
get out, and then they were being, tarnished. I think for me, it was just her explaining that she always thought something was wrong with her, and she's always been seeking out these ways to harm things. That
Yeah.
felt to me like a nature's a nurture nature thing,
Yeah.
just because it's like serial killers, you learn about them all the time. Their parents and the people, the worlds around them were totally normal. They
Yeah.
were just messed up. Sometimes,
Occasionally. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna get
I'm
into
not.
it.
I'm not.
I think I have
A
different
psychologist.
opinions. And this is in no way to excuse. She is a problem. She should not have gone her whole life getting away with murder. But that's also like a product of the patriarchy, not thinking women can be murderers. I
Mhm.
believe, I'm going to look it up real quick, but when did women get the or get charged with murder?
Well, you had like Mary with the axe. Remember her?
No. What? Yeah, yeah,
Lizzie.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I meant Lizzie Borden.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
When was
yeah.
that? 1892. She did.
Yeah. 1892. This film was in 1918, so not too far afterwards.